Hi, Team Mira. Coach Alexa here, coach for Reading, South Oxfordshire and online. I wanted to talk about heart rate today because heart rate can be a really useful stat to track for our running. I particularly like looking at people's resting heart rate and the trends for resting heart rate. So your heart rate first thing in the morning before you get out of bed and before your brain and body has to start kicking in and doing stuff is a fantastic metric for measuring general all-round cardiovascular health and fitness. And heart rate can be a very useful mechanism for feeding back on our effort level. So the amount of effort level that we're putting into a run determines the training outcome, and heart rate can be a useful feedback mechanism for that. What I would say though is that, again, as runners, we tend to get really into the nitty-gritty detail of the numbers, and it's worth, I guess, just zooming out a little bit around heart rate for running specifically and give it a little bit of context. So our heart and lungs are the input force. The lungs are the input. That's where we get our oxygen in and how we get our carbon dioxide out. And the heart is just a pump, really. I mean, fairly important, but all it does is pump stuff, blood around our bodies. So the two together are our cardiovascular system, or the key components of our cardiovascular system. And they power our bodies. So we notice that a lot more when we run. You know, when we're running, our heart rate, our breathing rate are higher than when we're just sat on the sofa chilling out of an evening. The faster we run, the faster our heart rate and breathing rate go. They're not just there for running though. Sounds like a really daft thing to say, but our heart and our lungs, our whole cardiovascular system are running our whole bodies. So, you know, our brain, they're pumping oxygen and nutrients to our brain. They're running our digestive system. They're running our temperature control system. They are running all of our internal organs. Absolutely everything that your body is doing is provided with the nutrients and oxygen in order to be able to do it by our heart and lungs. Now, the reason I say this and the reason why I've, made that point and given you some examples there is that running isn't the only thing, therefore, that impacts heart rate. So I'll give you a few examples of runners that I've been working with this year, and some of the things that we've noticed that have been having an influence on their heart rate stats, both resting heart rate and the heart rate that they've been experiencing during runs, and why that actually hasn't been anything to do with their running in these cases. Pregnancy, having a really, really busy time at work, hot weather, humid weather, not sleeping very well, coming down with something but not aware that you're ill yet, both tummy bugs and COVID recently, recovery from COVID or flu or respiratory illnesses, dodgy curry the night before. What else is there? Stress, anxiety, those sorts of things that impact your psychological state, your state of, alertness or fight or flight in our body. So those are just a few examples of some of the things that I've directly worked on with runners so far this year that have impacted their heart rate. So, I could have looked at the heart rate in their runs and go, oh, that's higher than usual. You should have slowed down. And that's part of it, part of that conversation. But also there's a bigger context as to, well, why is our heart rate doing what it's doing on a particular day? So I always try and take heart rate as one piece of information as in a bigger picture about the runner. So what's their breathing rate like? Are they still able to stick with their natural, perhaps, rhythm that they have between their breathing rate and their footfall? Can they still talk in full sentences on an out breath? What were some of the individual environmental aspects on that run? Was it really hot and humid and horrible like it was at the weekend? What have they eaten and drunk? If that heart rate's starting to kind of drift throughout a run, what is their hydration and nutrition status like? So you can look at all these different other factors that might be impacting our cardiovascular system, our heart rate in particular. But you can also use that heart rate stat to start to see the impact of other things, other variables on our cardiovascular system and on our running. So it's a complicated thing, I think, is the summary takeaway from this video. Like with anything, there is never a kind of one size fits all. We're incredibly complicated creatures as humans. So, if somebody says there's one number that defines exactly what's going on in an individual person on an individual running session, I would immediately be sceptical. So yeah, just have a think perhaps for you, some of the things that have been going on recently that might have been impacting your heart rate, either resting or when you're running, and how else, might you notice that as you go about your day-to-day life. Because it's an interesting one, as I say, the heart and the lungs, our whole cardiovascular system are doing way more than just powering our running. Happy running.